Hello all. Today I'll be speaking about the risk management plan in place and the risk faced by this departure-based school. Starting off with risks. What is risk? It can be defined by three terms mainly. The first is the asset. So the asset is anything that holds an value to the organization. Then there's the second is vulnerability, which is any kind of danger to this valuable asset of the organization. And then there's threat, which is any possible danger. So the risk is typically the vulnerability exposed to the threat and in order to harm the asset. So we always note that the risk cannot be eliminated but can only be managed or minimized. So there is no such thing as zero risk or no risk at all. There's always some kind of risk involved, and this can only be managed or minimized. So it can be controlled in a way, but there is no zero risk. Hence, coming to what is risk management. So risk management is a process with a series of phases in it. And the first phase in the risk management process is identifying this risk. So the risk is caused to an organization is first identified what asset it is harming, what kind of damages it is going to take, and then proceeding to the next step, which is assessing the risk. Assessing a risk is also a series of steps to be followed, and then there is controlling this risk. So in order to mitigate or control this risk, the organization needs to take certain steps. And then there's the last phase, which is reviewing these controls. So if these controls are wrong or right, have been reviewed, and the process has been finalized after this. So now here the assessment of risk has some steps as well, where the organization can either transfer this risk. So if this risk is of much harm and causes much danger, then they can be transferred to an insurance company, say by a third party insurance company of the organization, which can handle the consequences or can recover the damages or the loss which is caused to the organization. Then either they can also avoid the risk, as this kind of risk may not cause any kind of major harm to the asset or the organization. So they can either avoid it and move further with monitoring the risk management process and the risk which are involved. Then they can either accept this risk and face the consequences, and which would be a case where the cost of mitigating the risk would be more than the damage caused. So in order to prevent that, the best case would be accepting the risk and continuously monitoring the risk, which would the occurrence of this risk in future. And then there's the last step, which is the mitigation of risk. So in this step, where the risk could be considered, the probability of happening and the damages to be controlled here are important. So they need to mitigate the risk and take proper care in future in order to avoid this risk again. This departure based school is an mid-range school with around 10 to 15,000 students and has few labs within it, includes IT labs, chemistry and mechanical labs, etc. So it is located in an area where it is prone to environmental security threats once in a while. Example, earthquake. So there's already have a risk appetite in place. The school already have a risk appetite in place. So where they define all the risk and all the details are associated with it. So they have a chart to measure the impact and the reactions required to this risk, so post containment and stuff. So the way they look at it as is the firstly the asset is identified which is impacted, and then the value of the asset is defined in the range of 1 to 5, where 5 being the highest. Then there is a threat associated with the risk is identified with the asset, then the level of threat from 1 to 5, and then what is the impact on the CIA, what is compromised, the confidentiality, the integrity, availability, or all of that is compromised in one risk is identified. After which there is an existing control whether it should be enough or no, and then the level of vulnerability which is measured again. The threat vulnerability and the likelihood of these threats, depending on those calculations, they have identified any risk impact rating below 35 is acceptable by the school. So ranging between 1 to 35, it's acceptable. If it's ranging more than 35 to 90 or 95, it is a medium risk and should be taken care of. And above that, it is a higher critical risk which needs to be mitigated or transferred to what we already said, to insurance company, or the company who can take care of it. Hence, starting off with the first of the four risks that we face in the school, is defined by the student database, which is the first one. The asset identifies the student database, which has a high value asset with the sensitive data, of course, of the students' grades and related documents and everything. The level of threat is major over here, as the vulnerability says that the SSI certificate are being used over here, which are vulnerable to portal attacks, and hence the impact on CIA is high, as the confidentiality and availability is compromised to a great extent. Even though the level of vulnerability being high at 5, the level of threat is mid, and the probability is low as well. So this falls into acceptable range of the impact rating, which is below 35, and it shall be accepted with the consequences. But obviously the risk management plan in place, the policies which are considered needs to be continuously updated, as well as risk in future needs to be avoided, so it is to be monitored on regular basis. The second is the infrastructure, which is highly valuable, of course, and is prone to earthquake once in every 5 years. Hence, the level of threat is medium, since the magnitude around is low comparatively to disrupt the entire infrastructure, and hence it is at 1 for the level of vulnerability and threat. The risk is acceptable, but the mitigation and the risk management plan should be improved, since it is an environmental threat. So over here, it can raise at any point. So the prevention, like earthquake proofing, or the shielding, which could be done around the school, where there are some materials need to be dug near the school environment, near the ground. And as we can see in the figure, there are some steps there, sensors needs to be taken place around the school, so that no one is harmed in case if it goes wrong. There are labs in the school which can be at a greater risk and can cause major harm to the students in there, as well as the staff and the faculty present in there. So this risk, even though it seems to be low in my opinion, is a high risk, but needs to be taken care of and needs to be continuously monitored in order to avoid the future prevention over here. The next threat up here is the Zoom bombing. This asset is online lectures, as after the COVID effects, there is a very high value to this asset and has a very less existing controls over the place right now, by the school, as there would be no control during the live lectures if there is Zoom bombing happening by any hacker, and as they're playing illegal videos over there, or any kind of information which is not related to the class and which would be harmful for mentally affecting the students, and as well as professors. So this Zoom bombing would impact the CIA, the integrity of the data being compromised, the availability of the knowledge is compromised, where the level of vulnerability and the threat is high, as well as the occurrence and the exploitation is more due to the online lectures taking place now for all the schools, universities, everywhere. It is more frequent to happen again and again. Hence this risk needs to be mitigated, as it is at a very critical level. So the prevention would be should be put in place, in my opinion. They can use a content delivery network in order to give access to only the students, and the live meetings would be not be compromised more. They can use different networks in order to upload their lectures, and this can help in a way. But also it will also help in the next risk, which is the fourth one, where which is a system disruption, which can be due to malicious attacks like malwares, DOS or DDoS attacks, as well as it can be ranging from power outages to natural disasters as well. So it has very low chances of occurrence though, but the network's load can be distributed over here. The backups can be created, which are not in existing controls as by the school as of now, but everything including the lectures are getting online and would increase the threat in a way. And also loss of data could affect the availability, compromise the CIA to a great extent, and this risk cannot be accepted and would require proper mitigation and control. So the post prevention or the post mitigation steps needs to be taken care of. The mitigation risk mitigation plan needs to be updated. The policies which are in place by the schools needs to be updated. The security uh, cost will increase, but preventive measures like the network load balancers can be applied. Inbound traffic should be monitored. Intrusion detection systems can be implemented in order to control this kind of disruption or to prevent it in future, and which may cause a lot of data loss, and which can be avoided. So coming on to the conclusion, in my opinion, I would like to mention that these cost cuttings of these educational institutions are affecting these risks. So there's a lack of security investment. There's a lack of security awareness among the staff, and the IT environment is complex, which is making it very difficult for this institution to ensure the security of the systems as well as their data. The student database, the staff database is a very sensitive information to be exposed to hackers or on the web. So moving everything online, and the lectures and the notes and everything which is after COVID, it has made it more difficult to secure the data online, along with the Zoom bombing and every other threat coming in day by day, increasing the risk. There needs to be certain policies in place already by the institutions in order to take care of such risk in future, as well as to prevent them and to mitigate them in a way which causes less harm to the organization, and it makes more difficult for the hackers to look into that. And so in order to be more prepared for this insider or as well as this outsider threats, the education organization needs to plan on increasing their security investment. They need to keep the backup of data elsewhere where there is infrastructure risk happening. They can use cloud for backing up their data, different data centers apart from their risk prone areas, and so that they can have more controlled environment. Thank you. And these are the references used. Thank you.